So hey guys, I thought I would share some tools with you. I just recently got some from my grandfather. When I was talking to him, it sounds like a lot of these tools actually came from his father. When I was talking to my grandmother, she made it sound like there are a potential few tools that are sprinkled in here that came from actually her grandfather. So what is that, a great-great-great-grandfather? So I've been having a little bit of a hard time tracking some of this down, but the story goes is when her grandfather passed away, it sounded like the family all got together and sort of this circle, and they just all picked out an item and it kind of went around. It was really interesting talking to her about that and how much fun she described it was. Like there was some real special memories she had around that. So, however, I haven't been able to really pick out exactly what tools those are. I did get one hint on one of these grinding wheels. It sounded like that was one of the items, but when I look up that item and when it potentially was made, I'm guessing it was not something that he had for most of his life. It was probably something he had acquired later in his life. So a lot of these tools are probably around 100 years old. Really hard to put some dates on some of these, but sometimes you can kind of get a rough idea just in the time frame these things were manufactured, or when they stopped getting manufactured, or sometimes when items got bought out and changed. There's certain hints. So there's some of them that have a pretty broad block, but then there's some of these I've been able to narrow down to at least the year that they were manufactured. So let's dive into some of this. This is one of the two toolboxes I have. I'm not 100% positive on whether my grandfather built this. I would assume so, but I have no way to confirm that. Really a nice little box. I like it. It's just so vintage looking. It's about 34 inches long, so you can definitely put a lot of tools in it. And it's really heavy duty built, which in some ways is a good thing, and the other ways, it's a little bit of a heavy box. I wish there was some sort of leather straps or something on the ends to be able to hold this thing. There's one feature I really like about this, and that's this little saw holder here. There's a little piece of leather strap sitting right here that rotates on a nail, and then there's a little sort of board here to help hold things in place, and it allows you to put a saw. I'm not really sure of the origin of this saw. There's no markings on the blade at all. I can't find any emblems on this. Probably one of the worst saws that I have in this mix. Definitely needs to be sharpened. Something I'm gonna have to look into how to do at some point. I'd like to kind of go through and do a restore on some of these things. But I thought this was a pretty cool little feature here. You got a saw right there at your fingertips. So what kind of toolbox wouldn't have drill bits? There's definitely some variety of ones in here in all different shapes and sizes. Some of them are really sharp. Some of them I'm gonna have to go back in and sharpen up. I tested out a couple of them. All different sizes. A lot of these auger bits in here. Something like this, I can't even wrap my head around. I mean, generally the type of projects that I'm doing are rough carpentry. A lot of times we'll end up, a lot of the houses we've lived in have been very starter type homes, so we'll end up ripping, gutting rooms out, rebuilding them, and never use anything like this. This is just kind of a neat little thing. One thing that did catch my attention related around these drill bits is one of these little Stanley, let's see, what is the part number on here? C575. I think it's also called like a Stanley number 49 or something like that. This is a depth gauge. Generally the way I've dealt with depth gauges in the past on setting a depth on a drill bit is I take a little piece of masking tape, and that works pretty well. If you're doing a bunch of them and sometimes you're working with a high-speed drill or something, you end up going a little too deep and messing up the tape, so it's not the most precise thing, where this one takes you a couple more minutes to get set up, but you can really dial it in and stay very consistent. Basically, the way it works is you kind of loosen this up a little bit, take one of your auger bits, screw it into whatever depth you want it to go to, tighten things down, and then you got these nice little stoppers here that will stop it at the exact consistent depth that you want. So that's a pretty nice little thing to have in the arsenal. a small little hand crank bench grinder. I ended up actually getting 2 of these. This is the older and the smaller of the 2 of these. So I'm thinking this is the one my grandma was talking about that ended up coming from my great-great-great-grandfather. Really a pretty impressive little tool when I actually look at how easy this thing is to use. See, it's got mounted onto a board here, so you can easily stick it into a vice clamp or something to get it up off the table, or maybe if you had some sort of tread, you could just slide it on into your bench. Or you can, I mean, just clamp it right onto the edge of your workbench as well. I'm really impressed in how little effort it actually takes to get this thing going here. I can really get it whipping and rolling with just one finger. There is an oil port up here. I have not dropped any oil into this one yet. The other one I did a little bit bigger. It was a little bit tougher. It wasn't super hard to spin, but it was definitely not as easy as this one. And as soon as I drop just a little bit of oil down into this hole, it really loosened things up. It also has got a little clamp on here so I can set my angle. And as this is mounted into a bench vise or something where it's held steady, I could easily hold whatever tool I need and then be able to just crank away. And like I said, this takes very little amount of effort and you can really get it going. I tell you what, there's definitely been some really cool stuff I've been finding in this particular toolbox. There's also just a lot of basic stuff in there. There's a bit and brace, there's some screwdrivers, some wrenches, all sorts of cool stuff. I've been finding a lot of hand tools. It's very apparent that he was a violin maker. I mean, there's just a lot of hand tools. Even some really neat things like this, an old wooden plane. I'm gonna have to go through these in a little bit more detail, figure out who made some of these. For example, there's a lot of these thumb planes in here. I've been looking at this plane just over the last couple minutes here, and I don't see any brand name on here, but if you actually look at the blade itself, it says Stanley. So is this actually a Stanley thumb plane, or is that someone just stuck a Stanley blade in it? I'm not sure. Here's another one of those little thumb planes. Really all brass, just a gorgeous little thing. What is this? Probably a rosewood handle on here. The thing that has really thrown me through a loop, though, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, we'll get this in focus, but the blade on here, it's serrated. So I'm not sure of the reason or the logic behind that. Is it to put some sort of texture in the wood? Is it maybe to, I would imagine though, it'd be very hard to continue the groove, especially doing a planing type motion with it. Or is it just to remove a little bit less material? So kind of looking for your guys' help on that. I don't have a lot of people that are very into hand carving wood type tools. I do have one neighbor around here that does some bowls and spoons from time to time, but I just haven't had a chance to run into him, and I thought maybe I'd ask you guys first. I'm sure there's some little smarty pants that probably knows the exact reason for this. So it's been really a fun thing going through these tools. I got another toolbox here that's got some really cool stuff. There's been a couple saws here that I've been able to track back. There's one here that was built somewhere between 1887 and 1917 is when they were using this particular emblem on their saw. So we'll probably dive into this toolbox if there's enough interest here in the future, and I'll show you some of the cool tools in that box here. I'd really like to get into doing some restoring stuff, but I've always been a little bit nervous about this. But at the same time, I'm gonna do this. I'll give you guys a little Home Alone 2 quote here. This is something that's always stuck with me. There's a part in Home Alone 2 where he talks about he had these rollerblades and he was too scared of putting scratches or damaging them, so he ended up just leaving them in the box. And before he knew it, he outgrew them. And I mean, these tools were built to be used. I mean, here we are. So far, I think all these tools I've been going through are about 100 years old. I mean, think about that. That's older than the average person here that's alive on Earth. There's not many people left that were around when this was built, and if they were pretty young, probably still wearing diapers. So I'd like to not be in fear of going through some of the restore of some of this stuff. I've done that in the past. There was years ago when eBay was relatively new. There was a Fender Mustang guitar in 1957 that went online. It was like one of those stories you hear about. Just that dream story. Is this guy that played it a couple times in church and got stuffed away in their attic. He passed away, and the wife sold the guitar not really knowing what she had. As soon as I saw it go on eBay, boom, I bought it instantly. And I started playing with it. I just loved the guitar. I loved the sound of the guitar. And one day I was playing and my guitar strap came undone and the thing fell. It landed right on the corner of one of my pedals and put a little dent in it. And here I was thinking to myself, man, I got a piece of American history. I'm going to end up wrecking this thing. So I took it down, out of all places, I took it down to Guitar Center. They had someone go through it. Everything was all authentic on the guitar. They gave me really a decent amount of money. I took that and ended up buying a American Fender. What did I end up getting with that money? I think I got a Fender Strat with that money, American Strat, and then I also got a Fender DeVille. I think that's where I ended up spending that money. Still stuff that I play today, but I was so scared of wrecking that thing that I didn't really ever put it to good use. So, you know, I would really like to breathe some life back on these tools. I don't want to just shove them away on the shelf and then one day my daughter or grandkids potentially going through my stuff as my days are over, and they just say, well, these are just some old tools, let's get rid of them, and then they never see any use. So yeah. So anyways, I'm gonna wrap this video up here. I think in a future video here, I'd really like to go through some of these tools. I'd like to show you guys a little bit of the file restore process that I'm gonna go through. Really would like to show you some of the tools in the other toolbox too. There's some really neat stuff in there. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any idea the reason for the serrated blade, I'd love to hear about it. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.